Hi, everybody, and welcome to another AMPS Educates. We are going to be talking about bugs today. We are being joined with our friend Steve here. He is going to be talking with me about bugs we might find out while going on a walk around our homes today. So, Steve, what makes bugs so exciting to you?
Bugs, oh, they're amazing. They outnumber us by like thousands to one, and they're exist in all parts of our environment, and they're something we encounter almost daily in our everyday lives.
Awesome. I love bugs. When we go out, I often see like flies, butterflies, ants, pill bugs. But today I really want to talk about ants. Um, they're just so fascinating and there's so much to explore with them. Did you know that there's over 12,000 species of ants worldwide?
Oh, for sure. There's definitely lots of variety when it comes to ants.
Will you do me a huge favor? And would you do a basic run over of the anatomy of an ant? Maybe starting with what is an exoskeleton and how do ants use it?
Well, as an example here, I happen to have an ant, a model ant, anyways. It's a pretty representative of most ant species. As you can see, it is a typical insect. It has three body parts. It has the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. They have six legs, not eight. That wouldn't be an insect. That would be a spider. So this is your basic ant. It has a nice hard exoskeleton that helps protect it from the environment and from predators and things of that nature. They are definitely hard to break through those little shells, which makes them tough little buggers and definitely a very evolutionary successful creature.
So they have these little holes and pivots in them that they exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen through,
Yeah,
um,
spiracles.
which are just so cool. I mean, they don't have to technically breathe like we do.
Yeah,
Um,
they use difference in pressure to draw the air in and out of their body in order to capture the oxygen they need to survive. So,
that's
yes, they
just
definitely don't have lungs.
yeah, they're just that's amazing. And how much on average can an ant pick up?
An ant can carry upwards of 20 times its own body weight. They are definitely industrious little creatures and very durable. I see an ant, if it was this big, could probably carry something. Oh, I don't know. Maybe the size of this scorpion would be no problem for it to carry around if it needed to do such a thing.
Now, are they a little bit more omnivoric, a little bit more carnivorous, a little bit more uh, herbivore? How would
You
you
know,
term
that's
them?
an interesting question because with as many different species of ants there are, they pretty much live in almost all environments where they can capitalize on all different things. They are decomposers primarily, though, breaking down, dead animals,
Yeah,
dead plant products. But some actually herd little animals for food, and other ones take leaves and grow their own little gardens of fungus to feed on. They're quite industrious little creatures.
they're pretty darn amazing. Now I have a question in regards to how they live because they live in colonies, correct?
Correct.
And they have a queen and her followers,
Her brood.
her brood. Okay. How does that work? What does that look like?
Well, typically you'll have an ant nest that'll have a singular queen who she lays the eggs of which the worker ants take care of, make sure they're protected, and when they hatch into larvae, the ants go out and go forage for food to feed them as they're developing into an adult ant. Here's a fun thing that most people don't know. When you see a very small ant outside, it is not a baby ant. There are no baby ants. They start as eggs, just like a butterfly, go into
Yeah.
a larva, which of course transforms into an adult ant. There is no baby ants.
Oh.
But the queen is the most important part, and they all make sure she's safe and protected so she can continue along raising her colony until she gets to a point where she lays eggs that become princesses, which will fly out of their nest to go start new colonies with some of their little friends to spread and continue their little life.
And now, is a queen producing just princesses, or does she produce her workers as well? And then, about how long will she live, and how many eggs will she lay over her lifetime?
Well, there's a singular queen, and she lays eggs for everybody. She's the
Wow.
only one that produces any offspring, and they're all female, by the way. There are
Wow.
only a couple of male ones for the purpose of making eggs, but they are very few and far between. It's primarily the workers that take care of the queen. Yeah, she can lay millions of eggs through the course of her lifetime, and some ants can live few months, some for a few years, depending on the species and where they are.
That's just so cool. Now the structure of a colony. I know that there are some breeds of ants that live above ground and some that live below ground. But how would a colony look structurally if I were looking for them on the ground?
Well, that's a good question. If you're looking for a ground nesting ant, as an actual thing here, I have a aluminum
That is
casting.
so
I
cool.
can get it in the right spot here. Let's put it over here so it's not in front of my face. This is an aluminum casting of a harvester ant colony from Nevada.
Cool.
This is the top part up here. The ants would go through and excavate all this as they go down deeper and deeper into the soil. And on the surface, you would see a anthill of the classic type, a nice cone-shaped structure, usually with some debris in it from the things they've been bringing in the nest they've consumed. They throw it back outside. And yes, this is a typical structure of an underground burrowing ant.
That is really cool. Now, how did you get something like that?
Actually, I have a friend who lives out there who likes to dabble around, and he had some aluminum, melted it, and had an ant nest in the backyard, and figured, let's see what we come up with. So he poured it down there, and this is what I got. This nice aluminum nest.
It's nice. That's really
remarkable.
cool. So, you guys kind of wanted to see how that ant structure would be. Would you know where the queen would be about in that aluminum structure?
She'd be down in some of the lower levels. In fact, this one doesn't go as deep as it actually would go. It'd probably go a couple more feet in the ground, but this is as far as the casting was made. But yeah, she'd be down in one of the deeper chambers, protected from anything that might come around to potentially harm her.
Right. Now, we see ants both as a helper bug and as a nuisance bug. What cases would we see them being helper bugs?
Well, in the biggest scheme, they are helpers all the way around because they are decomposers. They take care of things that we don't want to deal with in the environment. But in some cases, they move things around. They excavate the earth. They aerate the soil. They do all kinds of good, helpful things for the environment. Plus, they're a food source for many animals, which is great. So they're at the lower levels of the old food chain there.
Yeah, they're an amazing, just bug in general. But at what point do they become nuisances? At what point would we not want them around?
Well, obviously, if they're foraging and looking for something to eat, and they happen to find your home as a place to find something to eat, they will come in and take over. Now, a little piece of information people don't think about all the time is most of the ants that come on our house, in the areas where we live anyways, are not from here. They're ants that have been imported from other areas and are called invasive species. So most of the ants that invade your home that are that type of critter, they don't belong here. So they have no natural predators. So they become very numerous because nothing really slows them down. And yes, once they find what we have, they want it. So they'll come in our house and raid and take whatever they want. And generally are annoying.
Right. They can be a nuisance. They're not ever really bad, but they can be a bit of a nuisance. We might call in somebody to help us if we're infested with ants.
Yeah.
Overall, if I see one walking along the pathway, do I want to pick it up and take it home?
Not typically. They wouldn't live very long if you took them home. Plus, they're pretty small. They don't make a very convenient pet.
Now I've heard of some people keeping ant farms. Is that something that you would encourage people to do, or would that be something that you would say, nah, leave them outside?
All depends. If you buy an ant farm from the store, they send you harvester ants from the desert, which were collected for the purpose of going into the nest. Of course, there's no queens involved, so what you would get is the ants that, the worker ants. So they would thrive for a while before they eventually would, succumb to the, environment. Best not to do that if you don't have the resources to take care of it. They're more fun to go outside and take an ant colony you find and put something in front of it and see if they eat it. You can try different types of food to see what they're interested in.
That's awesome. What other ways can I engage with ants outside? Can I maybe follow one to see where its colony is, or maybe observe how they collect food?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, if you put different food sources down, you could see how they collect or take things away. Like you could crumble up certain types of things. Some ants like sweets, some ants like more protein, some ants more vegetable type products, depending what it is. So yes, definitely seeing some ants running around, it can be fun to experiment with them.
Awesome. Well, do you have any suggestions, advice for our budding entomologists in regards to ants and hanging out with ants?
Yeah, there are some fun experiments you can do if you find a good colony of ants roaming around, if you're patient and have the time. If you find a nice stream of ants going somewhere, you can break that stream carefully and put something they want down on a piece of paper until they collect it, then move the paper somewhere else until they leave and rejoin the line. And as long as you keep moving the paper back and forth with their food stuff, they will use it as a transport system in order to be moved elsewhere.
That is so cool.
You can also take ants, especially if you have sugar hungry ants, like a lot of the ones we have here in the Sacramento area, and mix up colored sugar water with food coloring and put it out for them and let some of them eat one, some eat a different color, and watch them. Eventually, they'll have a rainbow of little ants going back and forth as they eat the different colors because they ingest so much sugar into their body, so much sugar colored water, their abdomens will actually take on the color of the dye that you use.
So, Steve, there's lots of ants out in the world, and they're very similar to other bugs. Are they related to any other types out of bugs out there?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, ants are in the same family and related to wasps and bees. They all live in that colonial, they all have the colonies with the queen that runs the whole nest. And just like bees and wasps, there are many species of ants that actually can sting. So if you are out there playing with your ants in your yard, just make sure it isn't a species that might be harmful to you. Where I live here, there aren't any stinging ants. There are a few biting ones, but definitely in other parts of the country, you need to watch out for fire ants and whatnot. But for the most part, yeah, they're very similar in behavior and structure. In fact, most ants, if you look at them, look a lot like a wasp if you imagine adding some wings onto them because they are totally related.
That's crazy. So they're genetically
They're in
very
the same
similar.
actual family. They are
Really?
actually Hymenoptera. They're actually all part of the same group of insects.
Okay.
Ants and wasps and bees are all part of the same family of insects.
That is
So they're
awesome.
very interesting. And just like, they have a queen, but it's interesting. A lot of ant colonies have multiple queens, multiple queen nests, which means they have, easier time spreading out and colonizing new areas. And if one queen dies, they don't have to worry about the whole nest collapsing, which is a good thing for them.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense to keep your colony robust and strong and going. You're going to need multiple leaders, and if one goes, you don't want to lose your colony.
Yep. Yep.
Would one queen have produced multiple daughters, and then those became queens as well? So you're getting similar genetic traits, or are you getting separate genetic queens in one community, or would one queen accept another queen in, or would it have to be genetically related to her?
Well, that gets to be a really interesting question. So, here in the United States, we have an invasive ant called the Argentine ant. They're the most common one you'll see come in your house by the zillions that eat the sugars and all that good stuff. They
Okay.
are a multiple queen ant. If
Hmm.
you ever see a line of them running and there's a bunch of little ones and one big one, that's the queen. There can be multiples queens. But the fascinating part about Argentine ants is they came from Argentina. And when they got introduced here, it was a single colony that has spread across most of southern United States up into Oregon, places like that. All these ants believe they're all part of the same colony. You
Wow.
can take ants from Southern California and dump them in a nest in Northern California, and they'll integrate in perfectly. In their natural environment, there is some genetic variation. If
Yeah.
two colonies meet each other, they will fight for territory because they're separate colonies. That's what's fascinating about this particular ant here in the United States is that they call it a super colony. It's massive.
Because they're just considering it all one giant
It's
colony.
all one. It's basically a clone of a clone of a clone. It is one colony that
Huh.
has replicated itself so vast that it is one giant mega colony.
Now, because ants communicate via pheromones, is it that they're recognizing each other's pheromones and
Yeah,
the familiar
it's a
pheromone trails, or is this more along the lines of like actually truly genetically recognizing each other?
oh, it's all pheromone based. The
Okay.
particular species releases pheromones that they equate to being one of their own species and one of their own groups, so
Yeah.
they interact with each other very well.
So it'd be almost like me looking at somebody with the last name Young and saying somewhere you might have had a relative who's related to me, so you're partially part of my family.
Basically, yes.
Okay. Using a scent trail, of
Using
course.
a central. Yeah, and pheromones
Just
and ants are quite. The pheromones in ants is quite fascinating too because they have a pheromone for just about everything. If you take an ant in a line of ants and you squish one of them and watch the ants immediately surrounding it, it puts off a pheromone of an emergency type, and all the ants will start to panic surrounding them, and they'll start to act like they're being attacked. just with that one little scent, they'll triggers the whole group to panic.
Huh. Now, totally off topic, but I've heard, isn't that true for sharks too?
That I don't know about. I'm
Okay.
more of a bug guy than a shark guy.
Sorry. Totally
No,
random
no problem.
side
I like
talk.
sharks too, but and I like the scent of blood. And
Right? But so ants, how well can they detect food and food particles that they're going to be collecting? I mean, I know they have foragers, right?
yeah, they have scouts that go out to go look for food, and once they find something that's adequate, they return to the nest with it, leaving a pheromone trail that tells the rest of them, "Go here to get food." And it doesn't take much. I mean, they'll find the most smallest little, you know, microscopic little pieces of things to eat. But boy, you get one ant in your house that finds them, fruity pebbles, and boy, they're just the whole box is full after that.
I
So
really like fruity pebbles.
depends on the species too. Some of them like grease. You'll have ones that'll get into a stove. I've seen
Interesting.
ants move into people's houses during, especially the colder time of year. Some species will come inside to stay warm, living in potted plants. I even saw some living inside a coffee filter in someone's coffee maker they hadn't used in 6 months.
Holy moly.
Yeah, they left the grounds in there. Perfect soil to live in.
It just moved in and said, "This is great. Thank you. Cleanest soil we've ever had."
Yeah, and it smells good too. And it's caffeinated.
some caffeinated ants, really productive ants. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your knowledge about ants with us today. We are so excited that you did this with us, and we cannot wait to connect with you again in regards to other bugs or other exciting things that you might want to share with us. We'd like to take this opportunity to remind you to like, share, and subscribe so that other bright ideas from AMP Education can be shared with you.